The peaceful facade captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the UES Harmony, watching the twin suns of the Arcturus system paint the void in shades of gold and crimson. Her ship drifted silently between two massive alien fleets, each bristling with enough firepower to glass a planet. Yet here she was, one human vessel keeping the peace between species that had been enemies for 3 centuries. The Korthak. Empire and the Zephyrian Collective had been at each other's throats since before humans had even discovered faster-than-light travel. The Korthak were a proud warrior race, standing 8 feet tall with chitinous exoskeletons that gleamed like polished obsidian. Their ships were angular and aggressive, designed to intimidate as much as to destroy. The Zephyrians, by contrast, were ethereal beings of pure energy, housed in crystalline forms, their vessels flowing like liquid mercury through space. Elena had spent the last 6 months mediating between these two ancient enemies, using humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most skilled diplomats. It was a role her species had played for over 200 years since joining the Galactic Federation. Humans were known throughout the stars as the peacemakers, the ones who could find common ground where others saw only conflict. Captain, came the voice of her communications officer, Lieutenant David Park. We're receiving a transmission from both fleet commanders. They're ready to sign the peace accords. Elena smiled, feeling the familiar satisfaction that came with another successful mission. This would be the 49th major conflict her people had resolved through words rather than weapons. The galaxy had come to rely on human wisdom and restraint. She made her way to the bridge where her diverse crew worked in practiced harmony. Dr. Sarah Chen, their xenobiologist, was reviewing the cultural protocols for the signing ceremony. Commander James Wright, her tactical officer, monitored both fleets with the patience of someone who had never needed to fire his weapons in anger. Chief Engineer Maria Santos ensured their systems ran smoothly, while Navigator Thomas Kim plotted their course home to Earth. The signing ceremony took place aboard the Harmony in the ship's largest conference room. Fleet Admiral Thrakmore of the Korthak Empire stood across from High Conductor Xyleth of the Zephyrian Collective. These two beings had personally killed thousands of each other's people in battles spanning decades, yet here they were, about to pledge eternal peace. Elena watched as they signed the treaty with ceremonial implements from their respective cultures. The Korthak used a blade made from the horn of their homeworld's greatest predator, while the Zephyrians employed a stylus of pure condensed starlight. As their signatures appeared on the document, Elena felt the familiar warmth of another job. Well done. With this treaty, she said formally, the Korthak Empire and the Zephyrian Collective pledge to resolve all future disputes through the mediation of the Galactic Federation. May this peace endure for 1,000 generations. Both alien leaders bowed respectfully to Elena and her crew. To them, humans were almost mystical figures, beings of such wisdom and restraint that they could end conflicts that had raged for centuries with nothing but words and patience. As the alien fleets departed in opposite directions, Elena allowed herself a moment of pride. Another war prevented, another peace achieved. It was what humans did best. The journey back to Earth should have been routine. Elena was already composing her report to Galactic Command when Lieutenant Park's voice cut through the bridge's quiet. Efficiency. Captain, we're receiving an emergency transmission. It's from New Geneva Colony. Elena's smile faded. New Geneva was one of humanity's newest settlements, a farming world in the outer territories where 50,000 humans had built a peaceful life among the stars. The colonists were mostly families who had left Earth seeking a simpler existence, growing crops and raising children under alien skies. Put it through, Elena ordered. The transmission crackled with static and interference, but the voice that came through was unmistakably human, filled with terror and desperation. This is Colony Administrator Janet Foster of New Geneva. We are under attack. Unknown vessels appeared without warning. Our defense satellites are destroyed. The cities... Oh God, they're burning everything. We need help. Please, someone help us. The transmission dissolved into static, then cut to nothing. Elena felt ice form in her stomach. In all her years as a peacekeeper, she had never heard such raw terror in a human voice. Set course for New Geneva, maximum speed, she ordered. Captain, Commander Wright said quietly. Our weapon systems are designed for show, not combat. If there's really an attack in progress, we have to try, Elena replied, though she knew he was right. Human ships were built for diplomacy, not war. Their weapons were barely adequate for defense against pirates, let alone a serious military assault. The journey to New Geneva took 18 agonizing hours. Elena tried repeatedly to contact the colony, but received only silence. As they approached the system, what they found made even her experienced crew gasp in horror. New Geneva was dying. The blue-green world that had once sparkled with cities and farmland now glowed red with the fires consuming its surface. Orbital debris filled the space around the planet, twisted remains of the colony's modest defense platforms. 3 cargo ships floated dead in space, their hulls torn open like broken flowers. Life signs? Elena asked, though she dreaded the answer. Lieutenant Park worked his scanners frantically. Nothing, Captain. I'm reading no human life signs anywhere, in the system. Dr. Chen stared at her readings in disbelief. That's impossible. 50,000 people can't just vanish. Elena ordered a shuttle prepared for surface reconnaissance. What they found on New Geneva would haunt her for the rest of her life. The colony's main settlement had been reduced to slag and ash. The agricultural domes had been melted from orbit. Even the schools and hospitals had been targeted with precision strikes. But it was Dr. Chen who made the most chilling discovery. Kneeling beside the remains of a medical facility, she held up a piece of debris with strange markings etched into the metal. Captain, these symbols, I recognize them from our diplomatic files, their hegemony script. Elena took the fragment, staring at the elegant curves and flowing lines that marked it as belonging to one of the galaxy's most peaceful species. The hegemony were philosophers and artists, beings who had transcended physical form eons ago to become pure thought. They were revered throughout the galaxy as the ultimate pacifists, species who had not engaged in warfare for over 10,000 years. That's impossible, Elena said. The hegemony don't even have military vessels. They've spent millennia helping other species find peaceful solutions to their conflicts. Dr. Chen's scanner beeped softly. Captain, I'm detecting weapon signatures in the attack patterns. These weren't random strikes. This was systematic extermination using weapons designed specifically to eliminate all traces of life while leaving infrastructure intact. Elena stood, slowly, still holding the piece of hegemony debris. For the first time in her career as a peacekeeper, she felt something she had never experienced before. It wasn't just grief for the dead, though the loss of 50,000 innocent lives cut deep. It wasn't fear, though the implications of what they had found were terrifying. It was rage. Pure, cold, focused rage. Send a message to Earth Command, she said quietly. Tell them we need to activate Iron Protocol. Commander Wright looked confused. Captain, I've never heard of Iron Protocol. Elena's voice was steady, but her eyes had become as hard as winter steel. It's an old protocol, Commander. One we hoped we would never need to use. She looked around at the ashes that had once been human homes, human dreams, human children. Tell them the age of human restraint is over. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a bunker complex that officially didn't exist, Admiral Marcus Steele received the message from Captain Rodriguez with grim satisfaction. He had been waiting for this moment for 30 years, hoping it would never come but preparing for its inevitability. The room around him was filled with screens showing real-time data from across human space. Ship movements, colony statuses, and communication intercepts painted a picture of a species that the galaxy saw as gentle diplomats and skilled mediators. What the galaxy didn't know was that every piece of data flowing through those screens was carefully curated to maintain that illusion. Admiral Steele pressed a button on his desk, and 2 figures entered the room. General Rebecca Hawkins was a small woman with the kind of quiet intensity that came from decades of planning for wars that might never happen. Professor Michael Chen ran the Terran Institute for Xenological Studies, though his real job was analyzing alien weaknesses and developing countermeasures. New Geneva is gone, Steele said without preamble. 50,000 civilians, the hegemony did it. General Hawkins nodded grimly. Our deep space monitors detected their fleet movements 3 days ago. We thought it might be a test of our response capabilities. Professor Chen opened a tablet and showed Steele a series of tactical analyses. The hegemony has been systematically probing human colony defenses for the past 6 months. This wasn't an isolated attack. They're testing us. Steele stood and walked to a wall-sized display showing the positions of human colonies across the galaxy. Red dots marked settlements that were vulnerable to attack, while green indicators showed the locations of hidden defense installations that the galaxy knew nothing about. Activate Iron Protocol, he ordered. All phases, all assets. The room, filled with the soft chiming of secure communications being established across human space. On colony worlds, farmers would soon discover that their plows could be rapidly converted into military manufacturing equipment. Merchant ship captains would open sealed orders that had been stored in their ship's safes for decades. Diplomatic missions throughout the galaxy would receive new instructions that would fundamentally change their purpose. But most importantly, the galaxy would discover that the peaceful, restraint-focused humans they had known for 2 centuries were about to reveal who they really were beneath that carefully maintained facade. Steele pressed another control, and a section of the bunker's wall slid away to reveal a window looking down into a vast underground facility. Below them, thousands of workers moved between assembly lines and manufacturing stations that had been operating in secret for decades. "What are they building down there?" General Hawkins asked, though she suspected she already knew. "Everything," Steele replied. "Every weapon design we've held back, every defensive system we've pretended we couldn't build, every piece of military technology we've kept hidden while we played the role of galactic peacekeepers." His communication console chimed, and the face of a Galactic Federation official appeared on the screen. It was Counselor Vorth, a hegemony representative who had personally commended humanity's peaceful nature just months earlier. "Admiral Steele," Vorth said in the melodious tones that made hegemony speech sound like singing. "The Federation has learned of the unfortunate incident at New Geneva. We are prepared to investigate this tragedy through proper diplomatic channels." Steele looked at the alien for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was calm and measured. "Counselor Vorth, humanity appreciates the Federation's concern. However, we will be handling this matter ourselves." "Surely you don't intend to take unilateral action," Vorth replied. "Humanity has always been the voice of reason in the galaxy. Violence has never been the human way." Steele smiled, but there was nothing warm or reassuring about it. "Counselor, you're absolutely right. For 200 years, peace has been our way. But you've made a fundamental error in your understanding of our species." "What error is that?" "You assumed that our peaceful nature came from weakness rather than choice," Steele said. "You never asked yourselves what we were choosing not to do." He ended the transmission and turned to his companions. "General Hawkins, begin conversion of all civilian production facilities to military purposes. Professor Chen, activate our intelligence networks and begin disseminating targeting data to our field commanders." As they moved to carry out his orders, Steele turned back to watch the activity in the manufacturing facility below. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about the difference between choosing restraint and being incapable of violence. Humanity had spent 2 centuries playing the role of wise peacekeepers, but that role had been a choice, not a limitation, and now that choice had been revoked. When hell came calling. The transformation began at exactly 800 hours Galactic Standard Time, 3 days after the New Geneva massacre. Across human space, sleeper protocols that had lain dormant for decades suddenly activated with synchronized precision. On the agricultural world of Harvest Prime, farmer John McCready received a priority message on his personal communicator as he was feeding his livestock. The message contained a single code word that he had memorized 20 years ago, but never expected to hear. Within an hour, his automated farming equipment had been reconfigured into mobile weapons platforms, and his grain silos had opened to reveal surface-to-space missile batteries. Aboard the merchant vessel Lucky Strike, Captain Sarah Kim opened, a sealed envelope that had been stored in her ship's safe since the day she took command. Inside were new orders and modifications codes that would transform her cargo hauler into a stealth reconnaissance vessel. Her crew, all of whom carried similar hidden instructions, began the conversion process with practiced efficiency. In the Outer Rim territories, Dr. Elizabeth Torres had spent 15 years running a medical clinic for alien refugees. Her patients knew her as a compassionate healer who treated all species with equal care. They didn't know that her medical degree was supplemented by advanced training in biological warfare, or that her clinic's basement contained enough weaponized pathogens to sterilize entire star systems. This was Iron Protocol, the galaxy's greatest secret, and humanity's most carefully guarded truth. For 2 centuries, humans had played the role of peaceful mediators while simultaneously preparing for the day when peace would no longer be an option. Every human ship, colony, and diplomatic mission had been designed with dual purposes. The Mamaye galaxy saw only the peaceful facade, never suspecting the military infrastructure hidden beneath. Admiral Steele stood in the command center of Luna Base, humanity's most secret military installation. Built inside the moon itself, the base had been constructed over decades using mining operations as cover. The facility now housed the most advanced military technology in the galaxy, weapons and defenses that made the Federation's best equipment look like toys. Status report, Steele ordered as his senior staff gathered around the tactical display. General Hawkins consulted her tablet. All Iron Protocol assets are online. We have confirmation from 847 colonies, 1,200 merchant vessels, and 15,000 deep cover operatives. The transformation is complete. Intelligence assessment? Steele asked. Professor Chen highlighted several sectors on the display. The hegemony has 12 major fleet concentrations, with their primary command structure located in the ethereal nebula. They believe they've successfully tested human resolve and found us lacking. Their forces are positioned for a systematic campaign against our outer colonies. Steele nodded grimly. The hegemony's plan was clear. They intended to destroy human settlements one by one, testing whether the galaxy's supposed peacekeepers would finally resort to violence. They expected humans to appeal to the Galactic Federation for help, to seek diplomatic solutions, to respond as they always had with restraint and measured words. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Order the Ghost Fleet to begin. Phase 1, Steele commanded. In the depths of space, invisible to all sensors, humanity's true military might began to move. The Ghost Fleet consisted of ships that officially didn't exist, vessels built in secret facilities and crewed by personnel who had been declared dead in training accidents. They had been waiting in the void between stars, powered down and silent for decades. Commander Rachel Stone stood on the bridge of the UES Nemesis, flagship of the Ghost Fleet's Alpha Squadron. Her ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, incorporating technologies that the galaxy had never seen. Adaptive stealth systems made it invisible to any known detection method. Quantum weapons could tear apart matter at the subatomic level. And most importantly, it had been designed by a species that had never forgotten how to wage total war. All ships report ready, her tactical officer announced. Rachel studied the display showing the hegemony fleet assembled near the ruins of New Geneva. 12 massive vessels, each one capable of destroying planets, hovering over the ashes of 50,000 human lives like carrion birds. Target their flagship first, Rachel ordered. I want the others to watch their leader die before they join him. The Nemesis dropped out of stealth directly above the hegemony command ship. For a few seconds, the aliens didn't even realize they were under attack. The human vessel appeared on their sensors as if materializing from nothing. Rachel's first volley cut the hegemony flagship in half. The ship's quantum torpedoes tore through alien shields and armor as if they were made of paper, reducing the massive vessel to expanding clouds of superheated gas. The other 11 ships in the fleet scrambled to respond, but they were fighting an enemy they couldn't see using weapons they didn't understand. Within minutes, the entire hegemony fleet was destroyed. 12 ships that had taken decades to build, and thousands of crew members to operate were simply gone, erased from existence by a single human vessel that had appeared from nowhere. But Rachel wasn't finished. She opened a communication channel that would broadcast across the galaxy, ensuring that every species would witness what came next. "This is Commander Rachel Stone of the Human Defense Force," she said, her voice carrying across space to reach every inhabited world in the galaxy. "The beings you knew as peaceful mediators no longer exist. For 200 years we chose restraint over violence, mercy over justice, diplomacy over war. That choice has been revoked." She paused, looking at the expanding debris field that had once been the hegemony's most powerful fleet. "Any species that threatens human lives will face the same fate as these ships. We are no longer your peacekeepers. We are your executioners." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. On the Federation capital world of Concordia, the emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. Representatives of 100 different species filled the great amphitheater, their voices raised in confusion and fear. Councillor Vorth of the hegemony stood at the center podium, his melodious voice carrying clearly over the noise. "Fellow beings, we must address this unprovoked human aggression immediately. They have destroyed 12 of our vessels without warning, without negotiation, without any attempt at diplomatic resolution." High Chancellor Mordock of the Draconian. Imperium raised a scaled hand. "Councillor Vorth, weren't those the same vessels that attacked the human colony?" "That was a misunderstanding," Vorth replied smoothly. "A tragic accident caused by faulty navigation systems. We were prepared to make full reparations through proper channels." The lie came easily to the hegemony representative, but it was met with skeptical silence from many of the other council members. Species throughout the galaxy had relied on human mediation for centuries, and the sudden transformation of their peacekeepers into warriors was deeply unsettling. President Elena Vasquez of the Terran Republic stood to address the council. For decades, she had played the role of humanity's chief diplomat, working tirelessly to maintain their peaceful reputation. Today, her words would shatter that image forever. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the amphitheater's acoustics. "For 2 centuries, humanity has served as mediators and peacekeepers throughout this galaxy. We have prevented wars, saved lives, and fostered understanding between species that might otherwise have destroyed each other." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. This was the humanity they knew and trusted. "What many of you don't realize," Elena continued, "is that our peaceful nature was always a choice, not a limitation. We chose diplomacy because we believed it was better than the alternative. We chose restraint because we hoped violence would never be necessary." The amphitheater grew quiet as delegates began to sense where her words were leading. "The massacre at New Geneva has forced us to make a different choice," Elena said, her voice hardening. 50,000 innocent humans were murdered by beings who claimed to be our friends. Children were burned alive in their schools. Families were vaporized in their homes. And it was done deliberately, systematically, as a test of our resolve. She turned to look directly at Councillor Vorth. "The hegemony wanted to know what happens when you kill human civilians. Now they know." The Draconian Chancellor leaned forward in his seat. "President Vasquez, surely there must be some way to resolve this through negotiation." Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Chancellor, for 200 years we have resolved conflicts through negotiation. We have been the voice of reason, the advocates for peaceful solutions. But there can be no negotiation with those who murder our children." She pressed a control on her podium, and the amphitheater's main display showed real-time footage from across the galaxy. Human fleets were emerging from hidden bases, colonies were revealing defensive systems that shouldn't have existed, and civilian vessels were transforming into military craft with impossible speed. "This is who we really are," Elena said quietly. "This is what we've been holding back while we played the role of galactic peacekeepers. Every human ship, every colony, every diplomatic mission has been designed with dual purposes. We've been preparing for this day for 2 centuries. The display showed human forces moving with coordinated precision, their technology clearly superior to anything the galaxy had seen before. Ships appeared and disappeared at will. Weapons tore through alien defenses like they were made of paper, and communication networks that had taken decades to build were being dismantled in minutes. Counselor Vorth's melodious voice took on a note of panic. This is madness. Humanity cannot simply abandon their role as peacekeepers. The galaxy depends on your mediation. Elena looked at him with cold eyes. The galaxy should have thought of that before testing whether humans would fight to protect their own. She turned to address the full assembly. Effective immediately, humanity is withdrawing from all peacekeeping operations and suspending our membership in the Galactic Federation. Any species that threatens human lives or property will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. The amphitheater erupted in chaos as representatives shouted questions and protests. Through it all, Elena stood calmly at her podium, watching, as centuries of carefully maintained diplomatic relationships crumbled in minutes. Finally, High Chancellor Mordok's powerful voice cut through the noise. President Vasquez, what do you want from us? Elena's answer was simple and final. Stay away from our worlds, leave our people alone, and remember that human mercy was a gift, not a weakness. That gift has been withdrawn. As she left the amphitheater, the assembled delegates sat in stunned silence. The species they had known as wise peacekeepers had revealed themselves to be something far more dangerous. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted forever, and there was no going back. In the days that followed, the hegemony's remaining fleets were systematically hunted down and destroyed. Other species watched in horror as humanity demonstrated military capabilities that defied everything they thought they knew about human technology. The gentle farmers became precision engineers of destruction. The patient diplomats became cold-eyed strategists who showed no mercy to their enemies. The galaxy learned that humanity's greatest deception had not been hiding their military might, but convincing everyone that they were naturally peaceful. The truth was far more terrifying. Humans were capable of both infinite compassion and absolute ruthlessness, and the choice between those extremes had always been theirs to make. When that choice was taken away from them, the galaxy discovered what lay beneath 2 centuries of careful restraint. It was not weakness or pacifism that had guided human actions, but a conscious decision to be better than their nature demanded. Now that decision had been revoked, and the stars themselves seemed to tremble at what humanity had become.